All right, everyone, this is a fairly major piece of news, which is that some of our diplomats, and I believe several Canadian diplomats in Cuba, have been complaining of symptoms that are comparable with those you would expect from some sort of odd sonic weapon being aimed at their heads or something like that. What's happening is that on several occasions, people working, and I don't believe they live directly in the embassy, but working down in Cuba on behalf of the United States and Canada, have apparently been attacked by some sort of weapon that causes confusion, memory problems, discoordination, and so forth. Vision issues and you know, the whole nine yards that you would expect as neurological effects. And what they're thinking is that some sort of weapon, some sub-audial sort of device, is being directed at them actually in their homes. And so some of these people have been diagnosed with mild traumatic brain injuries actually, and had to be evacuated for medical treatment. Now, let me say first, I find it slightly suspicious that the explanation of a sonic weapon was given so quickly. I find that a little bit on the odd side. I'm not discounting the fact that this is probably what it is given the symptoms. But it does seem, how would they exactly know? If nobody heard anything, if nobody saw anything, why would that be the immediate speculation as opposed to maybe poisoning or something like that? You know, of course, you'd run toxicology on them potentially. What if it's something that you just didn't find in these cases? What if it's radiation related? What if somebody's literally hitting these people in the head with some radioactive device or something, some gamma ray generator? You don't know necessarily. It's a little bit Cold War style spooky, I guess. You know, they're in a marginally communist nation that until recently we didn't really have a relationship with, tied in with the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then this happens. But I think my best guess would be if you look at the timeline of when these actual attacks, so-called, have occurred, it's after Trump is elected. That is, he hasn't, in the first case, he hadn't taken office yet. It was before January, it was back in last December. But Trump has actually been in there. And Trump, of course, mentioned fairly early on, we're going to, you know, take another look at the Cuba deal and so forth. My best guess would be that this is not the state of Cuba, which is actually cooperating in this sense, or any other state actor, but perhaps literally nothing more than a rogue group of Cuban nationalists, you know, maybe hardliners within the communist movement there or something, that don't like the United States or its allies, you know, because Canadians were targeted, though that could have been a mistake on their behalf, who literally built such a weapon. It's not unimaginable that somebody could figure out how to do that if they had a decent technical know-how. Such devices are used for crowd control already. By the way, I oppose their deployment. I think that it's inhumane. I mean, if you're causing potentially lasting brain damage to a person for the idea of crowd control, I have a little bit of a problem with that. Just stick with the rubber bullets or the tear gas. It works just fine, as we've seen, you know, since such methods have been deployed. You know, hit them with a club, they get a bruise, and they go home, and in a few days they feel fine, as opposed to, oh, we accidentally hit this person in the head, now their, you know, their IQ drops 10 points or something. I would think that would be not beneficial to the situation. Makes the police look bad, too. But if such a device were requisitioned, modified perhaps, or built by some individuals within Cuba who may have an axe to grind with U.S. policy, yeah, they might target some diplomatic staff. Maybe the goal is to make it so that the diplomats can't continue to work there. And such a directed weapon, properly built or requisitioned again, would be effective at a considerable enough range. It wouldn't cause anybody nearby to suffer any effects because it's heavily directed. It's directed sound is what these specific types of weapons are. And they are weapons. They market it here as a crowd control device. No, it's a form of weapon. You aim it at somebody's head for 10 seconds and see what happens. on its highest settings. I don't think that they're going to be doing complicated math problems anytime soon. It's going to be a little bit. It's going to be the equivalent of them working in the NFL for 3 years and getting concussed a dozen times. It's going to cause problems, and it's basically going to cause effects that are fundamentally similar. But can we really jump to conclusions and say with certainty, oh yeah, it's a sonic weapon of some sort? Well, have you seen the people who perpetrated this and deemed that to be the case? Did you see a pickup truck with a sonic weapon on the back drive by around the time of these occurrences? What if somebody's figured out how to miniaturize such a weapon, put it on a drone and beam it down from above? What if somebody in a local apartment just takes pot shots at them and you're never going to know who it is? They just keep changing buildings or something. Well, that's you're kind of screwed. And this could be a new way to harass, I guess, embassy employees and things like that, having such weapons apparently available to people who are not at least acting on behalf of the Cuban state, supposedly. Yeah, it'd be an issue, because then you're going to have to figure out how to build those buildings back up so that they're resistant to such weapons. It'd be a little bit difficult, I think. I suppose you could. I suppose the best advice to the diplomatic staff is, hey, don't go near the windows anytime soon until we replace them with something that's resistant to this sort of bullshit. And so, yeah. It used to be primarily your worry at an embassy was guarding it against bombs or something like that. Now, you have to guard against sonic weapons, so-called. Again, it could be some other sort of energy weapon. How are we 100% sure? I think if it were some sort of a radioactive device, I would think it would cause burns or something external, not just within the head, within the brain itself. So maybe I guess that's their guess. Well, it's a weapon that doesn't cause physical penetration, so it must be energy-based, and it's not causing burns, so it must be something that can pass through a wall without causing such an effect. You might want to increase the number of guards around your embassy and tell the Cuban government, hey, maybe for a couple blocks in any direction we should have a few Cuban police there who can tell us if they see anything suspicious. But it's worrisome that such a weapon would be deployed against diplomats. I mean, these aren't combatants. These aren't soldiers that are stationed there. These are our embassy staff. They're there to try to ensure basic working relations with the nation of Cuba. Think who benefits from such events. Probably people who don't have any specific loyalty to the Cuban regime as it currently is, maybe wants to take it back to not working with the U.S. Maybe this is some group of people who, under the very closed model they had before, were smugglers or something. They would have potentially a great deal of money to invest in such a thing. They would want relations to break back down so that they can go back to their semi-monopoly in that situation, as opposed to dealing with at least limited U.S. trade that probably worried Cuba will be massively changed by our new relationship with them. Of course, Cuba was already open to travel anyway from most parts of the world. It was just the U.S. ruminating on the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, and saying, oh, we can't work with you because, you know, you were actually communistic 50 years ago. You're not kind of communistic now, kind of, but not really. Just more isolated and insular when it comes to imports. But yeah, we should have repaired our relationship with them long ago. By the time of the middle of Bill Clinton's first term, people already disapproved of continuing the embargoes there. It was pointless. It doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense to keep any embassy staff there if they're going to come under attack by a weapon for which there is currently no safeguard in place to defend against, I think. I think they should withdraw them, move the embassy or something like that. They should work with the Cuban government. Say, is there anywhere else like with more actual Cuban people around we can take temporary shelter and have sort of a joint arrangement going on so no one's probably attacking the building? And then we'll, you know, figure out what the hell we're supposed to do, basically. That's about all. Peace out.